he could not walk. But he led a nation through its darkest hours. He faced fear not with fists, but with faith. When the world was broken by war and crushed by poverty, one man rose from a wheelchair to carry millions on his back. This is not just the story of a president. It's the story of courage, struggle, and victory. Stay with us till the end, because once you hear what he overcame, you'll never look at leadership the same way again. Biography of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Chapter 1. Born for a Purpose. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was born on January 30th, 1882 in Hyde Park, New York. From the moment he opened his eyes, the world around him was full of privilege, beauty, and great expectations. His family was rich, respected, and deeply involved in politics. His father, James Roosevelt, was a successful businessman, and his mother, Sarah, was a strong and protective woman. They gave young Franklin a life of comfort, but also taught him values of kindness, service, and responsibility. As a child, Franklin lived in a big house surrounded by woods, books, and silence. He didn't have many friends, but he didn't feel lonely. His mother was always around, guiding him with care. From a very early age, Franklin showed signs of deep thinking and curiosity. He loved reading about history and great leaders. He wasn't loud or wild. He was calm, thoughtful, and observant. He went to private school and later studied at Groton, a strict boarding school. There, he learned about hard work, discipline, and helping others. His headmaster often spoke about duty and sacrifice, and those ideas stayed in Franklin's heart. He wanted to do something meaningful with his life, not just for himself, but for the people around him. Though he came from a wealthy background, Franklin always believed that power should be used to serve others. He admired his distant cousin, President Theodore Roosevelt, who inspired him to think bigger. Even as a boy, Franklin dreamt of making a difference. He didn't know how or when, but deep inside, he believed he was born for a purpose. That quiet belief would one day change the world. Chapter 2. A Path Toward Leadership. Franklin grew up with big dreams and an even bigger heart. After finishing his early education, he went to Harvard University, where he studied history and became the editor of the college newspaper. He wasn't the most brilliant student, but he was determined and confident. People began to notice his charm. He had a warm smile, calm voice, and natural leadership. He believed in the power of words, and his speeches even then carried hope and strength. During this time, Franklin fell in love with a young woman named Eleanor Roosevelt, who was also his distant cousin. She was shy but full of compassion and intelligence. They shared a strong bond over their concern for the poor and the forgotten. They married in 1905, and Eleanor would later become one of the most admired first ladies in history. But in the beginning, they were just two young people who believed in doing good for others. Franklin then attended Columbia Law School, but he didn't enjoy it much. Still, he pushed himself forward, knowing that politics, not law, was his true calling. In 1910, he ran for New York State Senate, and he won. It was a huge step for a young man from a rich family. He campaigned in small towns, spoke to ordinary people, and learned the struggles of working-class Americans. This experience changed him. He realized that leadership meant listening more than speaking. Soon after, President Woodrow Wilson made him Assistant Secretary of the Navy. Franklin worked hard, traveled the world, and helped modernize the Navy. He loved this job. It gave him purpose and pride. Behind the scenes, Eleanor stood by him, growing as a voice for justice herself. Franklin was now on the path of becoming more than just a politician. He was becoming a servant of the people. Chapter 3. The Storm of Illness. Just when Franklin's political career was rising, life hit him with a terrible challenge. In 1921, at the age of 39, Franklin went on a short holiday with his family. After swimming in cold water, he began to feel pain in his legs. Within days, he could no longer move them. Doctors soon confirmed that he had polio, a disease that attacks the nerves and can cause paralysis. For Franklin, it meant he could no longer walk. This was a heartbreaking moment. A man full of energy and ambition was now stuck in a wheelchair. Some thought his political life was over. For weeks he lay in bed fighting pain, fear, and deep sadness. But Eleanor did not let him give up. She cared for him, encouraged him, and reminded him of his strength. "You can still lead," she said. Her support gave him courage. Franklin didn't let his illness stop him. He tried different treatments, went to Warm Springs, Georgia, and even built a therapy center there for others with polio. He exercised his upper body and learned to stand with heavy leg braces. Though he couldn't walk alone again, he trained himself to stand tall, walk a few steps with help, and hide his wheelchair during public events. More than just physical strength, Franklin built emotional strength. He became more understanding of others' pain and more focused on helping people in need. This suffering gave him a deeper heart and a new kind of wisdom. He saw life not from above, but from beside the people. In 1924, Franklin returned to politics slowly. People admired his courage. They no longer saw just a rich politician. They saw a fighter. He had turned weakness into power, pain into purpose. His illness didn't end his journey. It made him stronger for the road ahead. Chapter 4. Governor of Hope. By 1928, Franklin D. Roosevelt had fought his way back into politics. That year, he ran for governor of New York, one of the most important political roles in the country. Many doubted he could handle the job due to his disability, but Franklin campaigned with energy and confidence. He traveled across the state, meeting people, shaking hands, and giving powerful speeches, often while standing with the help of braces and support. To everyone's surprise, he won. As governor, Franklin showed he was not just a leader in name, he was a leader in action. He focused on helping ordinary people, especially farmers, workers, and the poor. He passed laws to improve working conditions, helped build public housing, and supported education. When the Great Depression began in 1929, Franklin acted quickly. He set up programs to provide food and jobs for people who had lost everything. His work made him popular across New York and soon across the whole country. People saw him as a man of action during hard times. While other politicians waited or did nothing, Roosevelt moved fast, using the power of the government to ease suffering. He believed that government should help people, not stand back when they are hurting. Behind the scenes, Eleanor Roosevelt became even more involved. She traveled across the state when Franklin couldn't, met with women, workers, and African Americans, and brought their voices back to him. They were a team, and together they were changing the way politics worked. By the time his second term ended in 1932, the whole country was looking to Roosevelt. With millions jobless and hopeless, people needed a leader with courage, kindness, and a plan. Franklin D. Roosevelt seemed like that leader. The road ahead was hard, but he was ready. Chapter 5. A New Deal for America. In 1932, America was in deep pain. The Great Depression had left families hungry, jobs gone, banks closed, and homes lost. People stood in long lines for food. The mood of the country was dark. That year, Franklin D. Roosevelt ran for president with a powerful promise. "I pledge you, I pledge myself, to a new deal for the American people." People believed in his hope. They believed in his strength. He won the election by a huge margin and became the 32nd President of the United States. On March 4, 1933, he gave one of the most famous speeches in American history. In it, he told the country, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." Those words gave comfort to millions. Once in office, Roosevelt worked fast. In his first 100 days, he passed law after law, creating jobs, helping farmers, fixing banks, and supporting the poor. This group of programs and reforms became known as the New Deal. He launched the Civilian Conservation Corps, CCC, which gave jobs to young men planting trees and building parks. The Works Progress Administration, WPA, built schools, roads, and hospitals. The Social Security Act gave support to the elderly and disabled. He spoke to Americans in fireside chats on the radio, using simple words to explain what he was doing. Families gathered around their radios, listening to their president speak directly to them. They felt he understood their pain. Roosevelt gave people something they had lost: hope. He believed the government must protect and lift its people, especially the weakest. Not everyone agreed with his ideas, but most people saw his heart was in the right place. Through his leadership, America began to breathe again. The economy was still weak, but things were changing. Franklin D. Roosevelt became more than a president. He became a symbol of courage, action, and care in America's darkest days. Chapter 6. A Leader in Crisis. World at War. By the late 1930s, the world was heading into danger again. In Europe, Adolf Hitler and Nazi Germany were rising fast. In Asia, Japan had become aggressive. War clouds were growing. Franklin D. Roosevelt, now in his second term as president, watched carefully. He didn't want the United States to join another war like World War I, but he also believed that freedom must be protected. When World War II broke out in 1939, Roosevelt helped other nations quietly. He sent weapons, ships, and supplies to Britain and other allies through the Lend-Lease Act. He believed America could be the arsenal of democracy, helping the good side without directly fighting. Still, many Americans wanted to stay out of the war. Everything changed on December 7, 1941, when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, a U.S. naval base in Hawaii. The next day, Roosevelt went to Congress and called it a date which will live in infamy. America was at war. Roosevelt became a wartime president. Factories began building tanks, planes, and guns. Millions of Americans joined the military. Women went to work in factories, symbolized by Rosie the Riveter. The country came together with a shared purpose: to win the war. Roosevelt worked closely with leaders like Winston Churchill of Britain and Joseph Stalin of the Soviet Union. They were the Big Three. He traveled across oceans to meet with them in secret conferences. Together they planned battles and dreamed of peace after victory. Even during war, Roosevelt kept thinking of the people. He created programs to protect soldiers' families and planned how to rebuild the world after the war. His speeches gave strength, and his calm voice gave hope. Though war was dark and painful, Roosevelt's leadership helped America stay strong. He guided the nation with wisdom, courage, and deep care, showing that even in crisis, a great leader lights the way forward. Chapter 7. Elected Again. The Fourth Term and Fading Strength. By 1944, World War II was still raging. American and Allied forces were pushing back against the Nazis in Europe and fighting hard in the Pacific. The nation was tired but hopeful. Franklin D. Roosevelt, though older and weaker than before, remained a symbol of strength. He had already served 3 terms, something no president had ever done. Now he made the historic decision to run for a 4th term. Many people were worried about Roosevelt's health. He had lost weight and looked tired. Behind the scenes, his closest advisors saw that his energy was fading. But the American people still trusted him. They believed he was the only one who could finish the war and guide the world toward peace. In November 1944, Roosevelt won the election once again, defeating Republican candidate Thomas E. Dewey. Knowing his health was fragile, Roosevelt chose a new vice president. Harry S. Truman, a senator from Missouri. Few people knew Truman well, but Roosevelt believed he was honest and capable. As Roosevelt returned to the White House, he focused on ending the war and shaping the peace that would follow. In early 1945, Roosevelt traveled to Yalta, a city in Crimea, to meet with Churchill and Stalin again. This important meeting, known as the Yalta Conference, helped decide how Europe would be rebuilt after the war. Roosevelt looked pale and exhausted, but he still pushed forward with plans to form a United Nations, a group of countries working together to prevent future wars. Back home, Roosevelt continued giving fireside chats on the radio. His voice was now slower, but still filled with kindness and leadership. He spoke about victory, about unity, and about hope for a better world. The American people listened closely. But time was catching up with him. Each day, his body grew weaker. Yet he refused to stop. Even in pain, he carried the weight of a world at war. He stayed focused on the people, the soldiers, and the dream of peace that he had promised. Chapter 8. The Final Days and Lasting Legacy. In the spring of 1945, Franklin D. Roosevelt seemed even more tired than before. Though he kept working, his close aides noticed how much his body had changed. His hands trembled, his face was pale, and his once strong voice had grown soft. Still, he worked every day. He believed that he had to finish the mission, win the war, and shape the future peace. To rest and regain some strength, Roosevelt traveled to Warm Springs, Georgia, a place that had long brought him comfort. It was here, years ago, that he had come to heal after being paralyzed by polio. He called it his second home. On April 12, 1945, he sat for a portrait, smiling gently as he talked with others. Suddenly, he said, "I have a terrible headache." He collapsed moments later. Doctors tried to save him, but his heart had failed. President Franklin D. Roosevelt died at age 63. The news shocked the world. Many Americans cried openly in the streets. Soldiers, workers, and families all felt as if they had lost a father. Even though victory in World War II was near, the world felt a deep sadness. Just weeks later, Germany surrendered, and the war in Europe ended. Roosevelt did not live to see it, but his leadership had helped make it possible. Vice President Harry S. Truman was sworn in as the new president. He praised Roosevelt and promised to carry out his work. Soon after, Japan also surrendered, and World War II finally ended. The peace that Roosevelt had dreamed of was beginning. Roosevelt's legacy was powerful. He had led America through its darkest times, the Great Depression and World War II. He created programs that gave people jobs, food, and hope. He helped create the United Nations, which still works today to keep peace in the world. Though his body had been weak, his mind and heart had been strong to the very end. In history books, Franklin D. Roosevelt is remembered as one of America's greatest presidents, a man who never gave up, even when he could not stand. Chapter 9. Shaping the Modern World. Even after his death, Franklin D. Roosevelt's ideas continued to shape the modern world. He had not only led America through war and depression, but he had also changed how people thought about government. Before Roosevelt, many believed that the government should stay small and not get involved in daily life. But Roosevelt believed that during hard times, the government must help people. He showed that leadership meant action. His New Deal programs created a safety net that many Americans still rely on today. Social Security helped old people retire with dignity. Workers were given fair wages and better hours. Farmers, students, and poor families found hope again. These ideas became a foundation for modern government. Many leaders around the world followed Roosevelt's example, building programs to support their people. But Roosevelt's impact didn't stop at home. During the final years of World War II, he worked closely with Winston Churchill of Britain and Joseph Stalin of the Soviet Union. Together, they made plans for a peaceful world after the war. Even though these nations had different beliefs, Roosevelt believed they could work together to avoid future wars. He played a leading role in starting the United Nations, an international group where countries could talk instead of fight. He believed that peace could only come if nations worked side by side. Though he died before the UN was officially born, his vision made it possible. Today, the United Nations still meets in New York City, thanks to Roosevelt's dream of a peaceful world. Roosevelt's legacy is not only in laws or buildings named after him. It is in the belief that every person matters, that hope can rise from hardship, and that one leader's courage can light the way for millions. From small towns in America to faraway lands, his story continues to inspire. He proved that strong leadership, guided by compassion, can change history forever. Chapter 10. The Legacy of a Leader. Franklin D. Roosevelt passed away on April 12, 1945, just months before World War II ended. The news of his death shocked the nation. Many people cried openly in the streets. They had trusted him through the darkest times, and now their leader was gone. But even in sorrow, Americans remembered him with deep respect and love. He had been more than just a president. He had been a guiding light through years of pain and fear. His wife, Eleanor Roosevelt, carried on his work. She became a voice for human rights and one of the most respected women in the world. Together, they had changed the role of leadership forever. Roosevelt's presidency showed that strong leaders do not just make decisions, they give people hope. He had spoken directly to citizens through his radio talks. He made them feel like they were not alone. He understood their struggles and never turned away from tough choices. Roosevelt served 4 terms, more than any other U.S. president in history. After his death, a new law was passed to limit presidents to 2 terms. But Roosevelt's time in office had already left a lasting impact. He redefined what it meant to be president, not just a ruler, but a servant of the people. He taught the world that government could be a force for good. His home in Hyde Park, New York, became a museum. Visitors come from around the world to learn about his life. Statues of him stand tall in Washington, D.C., including one with him in a wheelchair, to show his strength, not weakness. Schools, bridges, ships, and parks were named in his honor. But the greatest honor is the way he changed lives. Franklin D. Roosevelt's story teaches us that great leaders are not perfect. They may face illness, fear, and failure. But what makes them great is their ability to rise, to inspire, and to act. His life was proof that in the hardest times, one person with courage can lead millions toward a better tomorrow. His name and his legacy will never be forgotten. Franklin D. Roosevelt's voice may have faded from the radio, but his message still echoes in every heart that refuses to give up. He proved that real strength doesn't lie in the body, but in the will to rise when the world says you can't. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Glorious English. We bring you stories that teach, inspire, and live forever in your soul, because every English word becomes more powerful when it carries meaning. Tell us in the comments, what did you learn from Roosevelt's life today? Let's grow together, one story at a time.